And what is Hazel doing now? I heard my sister Natalie's voice echoing in the crowded anniversary party. Oh, she's sitting at home all day, probably watching TV and reading books. Natalie laughed so hard it made my stomach churn. My name is Hazel Chun, and at 32, I stood in a corner of my parents' lavish wedding anniversary celebration, watching my perfect sister, Natalie, shine among the family friends. With her elegant dress and perfectly styled hair, Natalie had always been the star of the family, the successful lawyer who never made a mistake. I heard she quit her teaching job. One of my aunts whispered aloud. What a shame, she had so much potential. Natalie's smile widened. You know, Hazel, she just couldn't handle the pressure. Not like me. By the way, I'm now a partner in my own company. More congratulations, more laughter, more sideways glances. I tightened my grip on my glass, thinking about the sealed envelope in my purse. The one I'd planned to share with my family tonight, before Natalie turned the celebration into yet another opportunity to shine at my expense. At least she got married, my mother added, trying to soften the blow, but somehow making it worse. Daniel is a very successful researcher. He's certainly taking good care of her. Daniel, my husband of 5 years, was late. He'd texted earlier that his meeting with the selection committee was taking longer than expected. I hadn't told anyone about that meeting, or anything else for that matter, really. We'd agreed to keep it a secret until it was official. Oh yes, Natalie continued in a low voice that masked feigned concern. Thank God for Daniel. Hazel needs someone to lean on, especially now that she's given up on the idea of building a real career. Although I don't know how he's coping with coming back to a home where he only has one other person there. I thought about the hidden laboratory in our basement. Years of research, long nights and early mornings, that discovery that changed everything. None of them knew. I kept it a secret, working in the shadows while they all thought I was just lazy. Remember our childhood days? Natalie spoke enthusiastically, a glass of wine in her hand. Hazel always said she was going to change the world. Look at us now. I'm already making a difference in my causes while she's probably still dreaming about it from her couch. The audience erupted in polite, light laughter. My father looked uncomfortable, but didn't say a word. No one would have said anything when Natalie was speaking. At that moment, I heard the front door open. Daniel's familiar footsteps approached the living room. For the first time that evening, I smiled. Sorry I'm late, he said, walking over in his garish coat. He didn't even stop at home to change. The Nobel Committee had a lot of questions about Hazel's research. Complete silence fell over the room. Natalie's glass of wine froze halfway to her lips. Which committee? Daniel looked around the room, taking in the shocked faces. Then his eyes met mine, and I gave him a slight nod. We hadn't planned to announce it this way, but after Natalie's performance, the timing seemed perfect. The Nobel Prize Committee, he repeated, this time in a louder voice. They are very interested in Hazel's work in the field of cell regeneration. The achievement she has made in her home laboratory could revolutionize medicine as we know it. My mother threw her onto the nearest chair. My father opened his mouth and closed it silently. As for Natalie, she was perfect and successful. Natalie looked as if she had been slapped. This is impossible, she muttered. Hazel doesn't even work anymore. She's staying home in, Daniel concluded by saying, it's a highly advanced laboratory where they've spent the last 3 years developing a treatment that could cure many degenerative diseases. The committee believes it could be the biggest medical breakthrough of the decade. I finally stepped forward and took the envelope out of my bag. I said in a steady voice, I was going to announce it tonight after the anniversary toast. But the nomination was confirmed this morning. The silence in the room was heavy. Years of hurtful comments about me being a disappointment to the family, and hearing Natalie mock me for wasting my potential. It all hung in the air between us. But why didn't you tell us? My mother finally managed to ask. I looked directly at Natalie as I replied, because people who are quick to judge are sometimes the last ones who deserve to know the truth. The next few minutes were utter chaos. My mother burst into tears, alternating between apologizing and trying to hug me. My father continued to ask detailed questions about the research, his voice brimming with a pride I hadn't heard in years. Natalie stood frozen, her flawless makeup unable to conceal the shock and embarrassment etched on her face. Finally, in a lower voice than I had heard before, she said, I don't understand. How were you able to set up a laboratory? It cost millions of dollars. Danielle smiled as she put her arm around my waist. Hazel used her inheritance from her grandmother Mia. Another shocking surprise. 3 years ago, when our grandmother passed away, she bequeathed her entire estate to me. Natalie was furious, claiming I had somehow manipulated our grandmother. But the truth was much simpler. My grandmother Mia was the only one who believed in me, the one who saw beyond the family's expectations. This money was supposed to be divided equally, Natalie protested weakly. Actually, my grandmother Mia left specific instructions, I said, taking another document out of my bag. She was aware of my research plans. She believed in what I was trying to achieve. The party guests, who just moments before had been laughing at Natalie's jokes about my boring life, were now gathered around Daniel as he explained the basics of my research. Their expressions had shifted from mock amusement to deep admiration. Cell regeneration? Aunt Margaret asked, staring at the initial research paper she had published. Hazel, this might help with my arthritis. I nodded. That's the goal. The treatment has shown promising results in early trials. It could help millions of people suffering from degenerative diseases. But you never said anything, my mother interrupted, still wiping away her tears. All this time we thought. I said calmly, I thought what you wanted me to think. It was easier to believe that I was lazy and unenthusiastic than to ask yourself what I was actually doing with my life. Natalia turned suddenly and fled the room. I heard the sound of her heels clicking rapidly in the hallway, then the sound of a door slamming shut. Her husband, Ivan, looked at me apologetically before following her. The party continued, but the atmosphere had completely changed. People who had ignored me all evening were now eager to hear about my work. My father wouldn't stop telling everyone around that his daughter might win the Nobel Prize. Later that evening, as things were calming down, Ivan approached me privately. He said in a low voice, "She's crying in the garden. I think she'd like to talk to you." Part of me wanted to spare Natalie her embarrassment, but I was tired of the tension, tired of the rivalry she'd created between us. I found her sitting on the park bench where we used to play as children. Her makeup was smudged, and her carefully styled hair was a little disheveled. She asked me as I sat next to her, How long have you been working on this?" I replied, "Since I left teaching. That's why I left work to devote myself to research full-time." She nodded slowly. "And all those times I invited you to my company events and award ceremonies. I was in the lab. The cell regeneration process requires constant monitoring. I simply couldn't leave it." Natalie was silent for a long moment. Then she finally whispered, "I thought I was the successful one. I thought I could show you how to live a meaningful life. By mocking me at every opportunity." The words came out harsher than I intended. She snapped. "I was wrong. I was so wrong, Hazel. I was so caught up in proving myself as the star of the family that I couldn't see. I couldn't see that you were changing the world while I was just talking about it." Tears streamed down her face, ruining what little makeup she had left. For the first time in years, I saw my sister. Not the elegant lawyer, not the family favorite, just Natalie. "I missed you," she confessed. "I missed my sister. Not the one who competed with me or criticized me, but the one who stayed up late planning our future together." She looked at me, her features a mixture of surprise and hope. "I missed you too. I just didn't know how to stop acting the way everyone expected me to." I reached out and took her hand. "Maybe we can stop trying to meet everyone's expectations and just go back to being sisters again." 6 months after my parents' wedding anniversary, everything changed. The Nobel Committee's interest in my research became public, and suddenly our quiet life was under intense scrutiny. News vans would sometimes stop outside our house, hoping to catch a glimpse of the housewife scientist who had revolutionized medicine, as one headline described her. But the biggest change wasn't in my professional life, but in my relationship with my family, especially Natalie. "You're not going to wear this to the press conference, are you?" Natalie asked me as she rummaged through my closet. We were in my bedroom getting ready for an important announcement about the results of my research. I looked down at my comfortable, brightly colored coat and pants. "What's wrong with this?" She rolled her eyes, but this time her gaze held affection, not disdain. "Hazel, you're announcing groundbreaking medical research, not conducting laboratory work. Here," she said, producing a stylish blue dress I'd forgotten. "This dress suggests you're a brilliant scientist about to change the world." This new situation between us was strange. Natalie used her organizational skills and legal expertise to help me navigate the sudden media frenzy. She became my unofficial public relations manager, handling media inquiries and ensuring my legal protection. "The university called again," she said as she helped me style my hair. "They want to offer you a research position. Full funding for your own lab." I shook my head. "I prefer working from home." My grandmother Mia believed in my vision of research being accessible to everyone. Remember, large institutions come with too many conditions. Natalie nodded, understanding now in a way she hadn't 6 months earlier. "Speaking of my grandmother Mia," she reached into her bag. "She found us while cleaning my office. She gave me an old photograph. It showed us as children, maybe 7 or 9 years old, standing in my grandmother Mia's garden. We were covered in dirt, proudly holding up some withered flowers that we had replanted. Do you remember how you always wanted to know why the flowers were wilting even though we watered them?" Natalie laughed. "You were looking for Egan back then, weren't you?" I smiled as I remembered that. "And you always organized our expeditions, making sure we had snacks and equipment." She said in a low voice, "We formed a good team back then. I'm sorry I forgot." Before I could reply, Daniel poked his head in, saying, "They're waiting for us downstairs." "The press is waiting." The press conference was held in our converted garage, which had now become a fully equipped media room. When I entered, I saw my parents sitting in the front row. My mother was holding my father's hand, and they both radiated real pride, not just in my achievements but in my character. I stood on the platform. Natalie stood to my right supporting me, and Daniel to my left. Silence fell over the hall when I began to speak. 3 years ago, I started this research with a dream of helping people. Today, I am pleased to announce that our clinical trials have shown a 94% success rate in treating degenerative cellular conditions. As I was presenting the results, I saw Aunt Margaret in the audience weeping silently. She had been one of the first participants in the trial and had been completely cured of the arthritis she had been suffering from. After the official announcement during the question and answer session, a journalist raised his hand and said, "Miss Chun, how do you respond to those who described you as just a housewife when your research first came out?" Before I could reply, Natalie stepped forward and said, "My sister wasn't just a thing. She saw a problem and worked to solve it regardless of what anyone thought. That's not the role of a housewife or a scientist. That's the role of a visionary." I squeezed her hand gratefully, remembering all the times she had belittled me and considered me just a homebody. Her public support now meant more to me than any academic recognition. Later that evening, our family gathered in the park, the same park where Natalie and I had made up 6 months earlier. My mother had prepared a simple celebration, not like a lavish anniversary party, but somehow more meaningful. To Hazel, Dad raised his glass, who taught us all that success doesn't always look the way we expect. And also for the family, I added, looking at Natalie, who can learn to see each other clearly, even if it takes some time. Natalie wiped away a tear, trying to maintain her composure. Then she announced, "I have another surprise. I have decided to reduce my work at the company. I will focus on helping Hazel establish a medical research foundation that is accessible to everyone. If you will accept me as a partner, sister." She hugged her tightly, remembering the little girls in the picture, working together in Grandma Mia's garden. "I thought you'd never ask." When I looked around at my family and truly saw them, and felt that they felt the same way, I realized that sometimes the greatest achievements aren't solely about science, but about breaking down the barriers we build around our hearts and giving people the chance to surprise us, to grow, and to develop themselves. And sometimes the most important discoveries happen not in the laboratory, but in our immediate surroundings.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं, ये जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं, तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है, दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है। अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं, ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं, तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है, दिल का हर एक कोना बहुत ही दर्द भरता है। मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं, तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते हैं। कहाँ जाऊँ कहाँ ढूंढूं मेरा वो साजो सामा, तो मेरी हर एक तमन्ना तू, मेरी रूह का मका तू, लकीरों में नहीं लिखा जो तुमने ख्वाब देखा था, वफा की इस कहानी में फकत एक गम ही लिखा था। सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा, मगर खामोश है दुनिया, कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा। बस एक बार मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर, दर्द का असर।